All right. So Starla, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me on today.
Alrighty, guys. So welcome to the Verified Podcast. RGV, we have today for the interview Starla Garcia. She is a marathoner. Is that a good description or a
Yeah,
runner?
good description.
She's a runner. She is originally from the Valley. We'll get to that. But most importantly, she might have a chance to make it to the Olympics this weekend. She has a Olympic trial in Atlanta, so we're excited for her for that, and so yeah. How do you feel with that already coming this weekend? It's coming by fast.
I'm pretty excited, looking forward to it. I wouldn't say that I have a shot necessarily, but thank you for that. I think people who definitely fall already kind
We
of understand a little bit better, but we can talk about that as well. Like, what does the sport actually entail?
well, we believe in you, so
Thanks so
that's
much.
that's what matters. So today, did you train already today?
Yeah, I did already. I already ran. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you do today?
I did almost 7 mile run, like 6.8, something like that, mile run. Um, yeah, this morning with some strides.
Oh, okay, okay.
Mhm.
Is that typically what you do as far as training? Like
So
just
with Yeah, so with training cycles, they can kind of differ per month or however long your cycle is. They typically last about 12 weeks long. And so some weeks, the way that my coach has it set up, is it's 2 weeks high and intense. So there's maybe 2 to 3 workouts within, like per week within that 2 week range. So maybe like 4 to 6 workouts, depending on what he wants to do. My mileage will go up to maybe like 70, 77 miles. So within the
yeah,
week. So
yeah.
the mileage is definitely longer most days, but right now I'm tapering. So I'm cutting back on mileage to prepare for a race day. And
Okay,
that's typically what
okay.
you do when you have a big race like a marathon coming up.
Right.
But with the training block, it typically works like two high, one low, and easy, and then two high again and one low. Yeah.
I see. And do you incorporate like weight training and stuff like that?
So there is
For
some strength training. It's more like just to keep your body strong and then prevent injury, like tight glutes and things like that.
Mm,
Um, and then also for bone health as well, you want to make sure that you do have strong bones when you're putting that amount of stress on your body every day.
right. Yeah.
So stuff like that, yeah.
So just to clarify for people who aren't very clear, how long is a marathon?
So a marathon is 26.2 miles.
26.2 miles. And
Mhm.
you just ran one what a few weeks back, right? Is
It
that is
was
that what it is?
middle of January,
Oh, middle of
January
January.
15th.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So a few weeks back.
Yeah, and so running that much in one day can really take a toll on your body, right? I was reading the book by David Goggins, right? Have you read that one?
Yep.
And
Yep. Can't hurt.
yeah, exactly. And he says that, I mean, I don't know what he was doing to take care of his body, but like at one point, his kidneys were shutting down.
Mhm.
And so I think it's important for people to realize that being a marathoner is kind of a little bit dangerous if you don't really like know what you're doing and take care of yourself, right?
Yes, I would say so. I think a lot of people, because a lot of people they can do it, but it shouldn't be, your training should not be taken lightly. You need to take your training very seriously because it could cause injuries for you in your buildup or, post race day or on race day. You could get injured or have hyponatremia or like a lot of electrolyte
Right.
imbalances as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I saw that piece also on Real Sports about marathoners who just downing water all the time with no salts in there,
Hmm.
and their brain just swells up, right? And they can like it compresses their brain essentially, and they I mean they pass away. So knowing about the salts going inside your body and all that stuff about being a euvolemic, right, is very important, right?
Yeah, it's really important for runners. I think even if you're doing a half, you don't know what the weather's going to be like, to
Exactly. Yeah.
really take into account, what is it that you're doing.
Cool. Cool. So Starla, And the reason why I was interested in talking to you is because you are from the valley. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm from Far.
You grew up. Did you grow up here?
I grew up in Far my whole life.
I see.
And then I went to PSG North for high school, and then I got recruited to run from college. So I ran at University of Houston, and I've remained in Houston ever since.
And how old are you, by the way?
I'm
Or when
30,
did you graduate? You're 30. Okay. I'm
so
31.
2008.
So you
Okay,
graduated what, 2008?
yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
I graduated 2007. So you were on your way to Houston. I was at A&M at the time. I always wanted to be an athlete. I mean, I wasn't good enough to be a collegiate level athlete. So I always admire when people from the valley get their opportunity to go to these good programs.
Hmm.
Uh, because it really inspires people from the valley who aspire to be to go to a like a D1 program, especially like U of H,
Hmm.
um, because they do have one of the best running programs, right? Track and field or cross country,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, so our track and field program is phenomenal. Right now, I think they have the world record in one of the relays. I can't remember which one is it, 4x1 or 4x4, but yeah,
Okay.
world
Have
class
you
athletes and then world class coaches. Yeah.
right? So I'm pretty sure you've rubbed shoulders with Coach Lewis, Carl
Yep.
Lewis,
Yep. He would
right?
be in there. He wasn't my coach exactly, but he was definitely in there from time to time. Coach Burrow was also my coach, and then
Okay.
Steve Magnus, which I think a lot of marathoners or people that may be listening that are into distance running know of. He was my coach my very last year there.
There you go. So if you wanted to be a high achiever in marathons, then you couldn't ask for a better coach, right?
Yeah.
As far as
Could have
having.
asked for better coaches. Exactly right. Yeah.
So as far as you getting into running, were you always a runner since you were little?
Yeah, I was always a runner. I mean, I did other things like I did soccer, I did gymnastics, I
Oh
did
yeah.
cheerleading. I did all kinds of stuff, basketball, soccer.
So you were
Um,
an all around athlete like your whole life essentially.
I wouldn't say I was any good at any of the other ones. I think I thrived a lot more at running.
Yeah.
I tried everything just to see if I liked it. I think the other ones that stuck the most or the longest was gymnastics and cheerleading. Um, and then running. And then eventually I just had to choose what I wanted. And then I didn't see gymnastics or cheerleading becoming like a lifelong thing for me. And I knew that I wanted to be a lifelong runner. I don't know why, I just like always felt way more connected to running. And then I
Yeah.
have two sisters, so I always identified as a runner.
Also, they're runners too.
No, my sisters are not runners.
Oh, okay,
They
okay.
can run and they could probably be very good. But I think I was just like identified, how like your parents, identify you as this child.
Okay.
And so I think I was like easily identified as that child and I just kind of went with it. And I liked it. I mean, I wasn't anything bad. I was,
So a
I
little bit
didn't take,
a little bit on the hyperactive side when you were little, as far as your
not
parents.
necessarily. I think
No?
I'm just a really competitive person.
Okay.
And so I think they knew that. And, my cousins were in cross country and track. And then I was like, well, I want to do it too. Like, why not? If they like it and they're good at it, then I want to try it.
Okay.
So I was very like outgoing and I'm still pretty outgoing too. Like if I want to try something, I go and I do it.
Right.
Um, so I think that's where it came from. And then like just kind of getting that positive feedback from family right away and then actually being good at it.
So you start running, what was it, seventh grade or earlier than that?
A little bit earlier, but I wasn't like competitive. I didn't do summer track or anything like that. My dad always wanted to put me in it and I was like, no, no thanks. I just kind of like knew that I didn't want to get burnt out because I would always see people do summer track and then they would get to high school or to college and then they would burn out. And I just like felt really something special about running that I didn't want that to happen. So I always told like my parents that I never wanted to do it. And then I would say like in middle school, that's when I wanted to like, give more time to it. And then in high school where it became much more important to me.
Okay. And so were you one of these, I guess, athletes that like you could just show up to race day and like win? Like, were you always winning first place, like
No, no,
easily? No?
no, I never did. I think that's really important for people to understand too. Like if there was people that like looked me up and look at my times, like there was somebody always better than me. I hardly ever won a race. Even when I was a senior, I don't think I won. I maybe like won like one or two races.
Mm,
And like I didn't really let that bother me. I think I knew I was a hard worker and like I had the respect of my teammates in high
mhm.
school and like other people. And I was a really good student and my schoolwork was really important to me as
Okay.
well. So I knew that if I wanted to run in college, I had to be a nice combination of both. It wasn't like all or nothing of one. So my schoolwork was always first, and then like my running was second. And like I was just a really hard worker. I wouldn't say that I was like talented at all. Um, I mean, some people would probably say like, "Oh, yes, you were," because you did get some kind of athletic scholarship. But
Yeah.
I think, like there was always people better than me. And so I think having people that were always better than me just made me work even harder.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
And so yeah, because when I was in cross country in junior high, I remember there was this kid in our school,
Mhm.
and this guy would never train, and he would show up on race day and just beat everybody. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? But that can only take you so far because then
Exactly.
when we got to high school, those habits crept up on him, and he just like stopped running, and he gave it
Mhm.
up because he didn't have that discipline,
Yeah.
right? So that's what you were saying, that discipline is more important than just being naturally talented at something, right?
Yeah. And I wouldn't really even say discipline, but even more just like
Drive,
consistent
grit.
consistency. Yeah.
Okay.
Consistency and then having like the drive. And it doesn't mean like it has to be an obsession, but you have to understand like why you like this one thing so much because the numbers may not always show, but if
Right.
you really really enjoy this one thing and you're consistent with it, like anything can happen, right? It's like
Right.
if you were to have a business, like maybe your numbers wouldn't like show right away,
But
but
you
if you
enjoy
were
doing it.
consistent
Yeah.
and you had so much passion for it, it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. It's just
Right.
that this is like a physical part of, of what you're passionate about versus like an actual mental thing. And it is kind of a mental thing as well.
Right.
But I think, there was a lot of girls that were always better than me, but I just knew that running meant more to me than the numbers, and I had to focus on that.
Yeah, exactly, right. When you have, like you said, such a passion, and you like doing something, a lot, then the numbers really don't matter because this is really
Mhm.
what you enjoy doing. So
Yeah.
then, were you that driven as far as, like you said, your grades and all that stuff, like at school?
Yeah. I was extremely driven kid. My dad was always like, I never had to push you. Like you were just like sitting down for hours on end. I mean, even when I was in college, like nobody would push me. I would just like sit down for hours on end and study. And even my older sister, who's actually a judge now in the Valley, she
Oh,
was just like,
nice.
yeah, you were a harder, like consistent worker than I was. Like I was just naturally smart, but you like worked really, really hard. Um,
So, what did you want to be when you were in high school?
I wanted to go and be a physician. Then I got to college and it didn't really fit. Like, I think the more that I realized it, it didn't really fit like the vision that I had for myself either. Um, and I don't think like I actually like had like I think I started to realize like, well, if I'm spending all this time studying for this goal and I'm feeling like I'm missing out on life, then that's never going to go away. I'm always going to
Hmm.
be yearning for something else or something larger than
Right.
like being in a hospital all day. Like that doesn't like
Exactly.
make me get up and like want to tackle it. It just made me like I think depressed and sad.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, you had a little bit passion more, I guess, for like health and fitness, maybe, right? Rather
I think
just
I did.
medicine per se.
But I think at that time I wasn't really sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I wanted to be a physician, and then I just kind of realized once I got to college, like maybe this is not for me, and like that's okay. Because I think also like we're taught at a really young age, like, oh, this is like the epitome of success. And so I had a lot of drive and a really
Yeah.
committed person. So I always thought like, oh, well, maybe this is what success is, and it's, earning these titles. But then like I started to realize, well, if there is this so-called success and I'm still feeling this emptiness and I'm like tucked away from everybody else. Is that actually the success that I'm looking for?
Right, right, yeah.
Hmm.
Right. You have to weigh your values and stuff like that,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, it was
Um,
just not in alignment.
exactly. Um, so then, like in high school, did you go to state and stuff like that for cross country?
Yeah, I did. I went with my team each year, and then even my senior year, and then my senior year we like won regionals as a team, and then I was like in the top 10 for regionals, and then in state I ended up going to state also my senior year in track.
Oh, okay, awesome. And
Mhm.
what did you run in track?
Around the 3,200. So at that time it was a 2 mile. I don't know if it's still that or if it's a 5K now, but it was the 2 mile on the track.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so long distance was always kind of more like your thing then.
It became my thing.
It became your
I guess
thing.
I, you know, I think going into junior year, it was kind of like I was now an upperclassman, and so I had to do more miles. And I'm one of those people that, you know, if push comes to shove, I'll always, do what's expected or what's needed or necessary, or making like a sacrifice. And so, and I also wanted to, be a leader, right? I think, and I'm one of those people that like leads through like actions. I don't really say very much, but I'm more of like, this is what I do. And so if you can repeat it or not. And I just like felt like, well, now is my time to actually be leader because I am an upperclassman. And so I need to, work hard and maybe put in some more miles and, do better. And I actually, I wanted to do better because I wanted to get recruited. I wanted to go to school and be a collegiate athlete. Like that was one of my goals in high school. And so I started running more miles, and my coach was like, I think you should move up to the 3,200. What do you think? And I was like, no, thank you. And she was like, well, I think you should because if we need your points for district, like, what do you think? And so then I was like, okay, my team needs me. I need to do it then.
You need to step up. Right,
I
right,
need to
okay.
step up. So she put me in the race. I ended up getting, I don't even remember, but it was a pretty good time. Um, and then she was like, I think you should do it at district now. And I was like, okay, fine, sure. So I did it and ended up winning my
Nice.
district meet. I like ran a huge PR, and then I actually was going into the regionals in like the regional
What
meet
was
this time.
what was
It
your
was like
PR time?
11:30 something, 11:40, something like that, which I've never ever
For the
run.
3,200 meters?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Wow.
I was like
That's
for
crazy,
like the
yeah.
first time ever. So, I mean, I was even like, oh wow, okay, I guess I'm pretty good at this thing. So I did that and then ran really well. And then ended up like, I guess, getting the feedback from that. And then going into my senior year, way more confident as well in like what I could do. And what actually seeing like, okay, like I guess my hard work has paid off now. Like being consistent with this has paid off. And so maybe there is, a future in athletics for me when I go to college.
Right, right. So how was that when you finally found out that you were gonna go run for the University of Houston for cross country? How did you find out?
I mean, so the coach came to my school and he said that he wanted me to go on a recruiting trip. It's like, okay, sure, like why not? And so he invited my whole family out, and I was a
Okay.
senior at that time. So it's not like letter signing yet. It's not letter signing day or commitment day. They're just kind of going and, interviewing, or, they even get a feel for you. Like how much do they like you? Do you
Mm,
mesh with the team? And things like that. So it's like really important. Like you always want to make sure that, you mesh with the team and that you're actually going to do well. And like for me, school was really important. So that was a big one because I got recruited by smaller schools that I didn't feel like I saw a future in for myself, or
right.
like places that I didn't feel like fit my personality. Um, so I said no to a lot of schools, and University of Houston was like the last school I said yes to. So it took me a long time just
Yeah.
because I was also looking at, I had academic scholarships
Oh,
as
okay.
well. So it was a really hard decision, and I waited very long to commit.
What was the other schools you were thinking about going to?
So my sister was actually in her last year of law school at UT. So that was
Mm,
one of them. But I was like, I don't think I'm good enough. And now I look back, I'm like, maybe I could have walked on, but it just wasn't the time and place for that. I wanted to go to Baylor, and then I also wanted to go to Texas A&M. And then I think those were like the two big schools I was waiting on to like,
okay.
yeah.
So then finally, U of H, you decided to commit to them.
Yeah, I decided. I like literally woke up one day and I was like, Dad, I'm gonna sign to U of H. And he was like, okay, perfect, Mijita. Great, I'm proud of you. And then I called the coach and told him I wanted to sign and commit. Um, and then like with like later on in the day, I was signing papers and then sending them over.
Awesome, awesome. And so I imagine your parents are super proud of you. Are your parents from the Valley?
Yeah.
What
Mhm.
do they do?
So
Are
my
they
dad,
lawyers or anything like that?
oh,
Judges?
no, just my sister.
Oh,
My
okay.
dad works for Region 1, right next to UTPA, like or
Oh, okay.
UTRGV, sorry, UTRGV. So his office is over there. And so my dad's actually retiring now. But
Oh.
he does like, I mean, it's funny because you really don't know what your parents do. But dad has told me that he does is he helps teachers become better teachers. So I guess he's like a facilitator. Um,
Right, right.
So he goes to the different school districts and he helps teachers become better at what they do. So he likes doing that, but now he's gonna retire soon. And then my mom is actually she was really happy because she's putting in her retirement papers as well. But she works in the computer lab at elementary school.
I see, I see. Okay.
Mhm.
Any of them athletes that's where you got your athletics from?
My dad was an athlete. My mom was not an athlete. She always says that she probably could have been good because all my uncles were very good athletes.
Okay.
Um, but she never like tried. So
Okay,
she
okay.
doesn't know. But my dad was an athlete. How good he was, I don't know either. But my dad said that he enjoyed athletics, and my dad actually used to coach like baseball and stuff like that too.
Oh, okay.
Um, when he
So,
was when he was a teacher.
oh, okay. So he was into that whole culture, high school athletics, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. So he
Awesome.
always liked those kinds of things. Hmm.
And when you get to U of H, that's in the fall, right? Is that
Hmm.
when you got to U of H? Did you like train extra hard just because you knew you were gonna get into a program that there was gonna be a
Hmm.
lot more competition?
Yeah.
So
So I
yeah,
trained really hard. I did not take it for granted, I think, like my
like that
training
whole
at
summer,
all.
yeah.
Yeah, because I know a lot of kids are just kind of like, okay, like I've made it, or like,
Right.
they get kind of caught up in like being in school and like being in college and having fun. But, I saw it as like a really big privilege and an honor. And I worked really, really hard my entire time there. And yeah, I think also like it's easy to have like a victim mentality of like, well, these things are not working out, or like my school, or not feeling like in place or like you fit in certain programs. But it's really like what you make of it. And like if you work really hard, like my belief has always been like, again, like actions speak louder than words. And like if you work really hard, then like you don't have to say anything else. Like that's just what it is. Like your work is going to reflect your time, and like even then like the work that you put in, like people notice that and they're going to
Right.
respect you for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you said that that when we get to college, it's kind of like a little bit of a culture shock, especially if you're from the valley.
Hmm.
What did you feel was different when you got to college than being back home?
Oh man, a whole lot of things. I mean, if somebody would have told me like, "Hey, like did you know that you're a minority woman in athletics?" That would have made my experience so much easier. Like way, way easier. And I don't think a lot of people really talk about like the culture shock that happens because you are in the valley and you don't feel like a minority. Like I forget,
Right.
I did
Exactly.
not realize that. I was very, very naive
Hmm.
when it came to other cultures and other people's experiences in life. Like I was just like, yeah, like they don't sell or like even just going to HEB, like it because before there wasn't a lot of HEBs when I moved here to Houston, and I was like, well, where's HEB? They're like, oh, it's
They're
like
like,
over
what?
there, and it was like only in the Latino neighborhood.
Yeah, they have the
Um,
fiestas or whatever, right?
yeah, and I was like, what is this fiesta? And then people would say like, oh, like there's a Randall's and Kroger, and I was like, what is that? Like I had
Yeah.
no idea that
So
other
expensive,
grocery
those
stores
stores.
existed. Like completely naive.
Yeah.
So like even just small things like that. And I remember walking into class the very first day, and I sat next to the first Hispanic girl that I saw. And I assumed that she was also Mexican and she was Colombian. Like,
Oh,
and even it
yeah.
was a even deeper like awareness. I had to like, really understand like, oh wow, like there are other like Hispanic countries that do exist
Right, right, right.
and in Texas.
Yeah,
So things like that I think were very eye-opening, like my first year. Um, and then like Houston is a big melting pot of cultures, like a
exactly.
huge melting pot of different kinds of people. And like I don't think I really understood that either. Because I was by myself, I was like this 18-year-old Hispanic kid, by myself, no car, and like, you know, I had to figure out, how school was going to be and like what I was going to do on a daily basis. Luckily, I was really responsible, to where my parents, I don't think, worried too much. But I mean, like just having to learn like about your entire environment all over again,
Mhm.
learning how to
Exactly.
be a Hispanic woman in athletics, and then even like as a runner was also really interesting.
Was there any other Latinos in your team besides you?
Yeah, there was a lot of other Latinos on my team, and I think we were all kind of, there was two other kids from the Valley that went with me.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Um, yeah, and I think they also had a really hard time adjusting. Um, and they were also guys, so maybe guys process these kinds of experiences differently. And like, maybe me, I encountered it differently as well.
So
And there
you were the
was other
only
Hispanic, there
like
was Hispanic women as
woman
well.
from the valley in that team.
Yeah, yeah. So like all the other Hispanic women had grown up in Houston. Maybe there was like one other when I got there. And then like as like the longer I was there was more Hispanic women coming on the team. But you know, like most of them did grow up in the Houston area. It was a Houston like
Right. So they were kind
based
of used to the
team.
whole vibe there.
Yeah, so they were used to it. I don't think they fully understood or like the kind of experience that I was having. And I think maybe they probably did, but probably like at a younger age, and then they've adjusted to it. But
Right,
for
right.
me, it was like completely new. Being a young adult and having to learn this much later than they did.
So as far as like your teammates, like did you automatically mesh with your teammates, or was it like
Mhm.
friction or anything like that, when you
No,
got there?
I think we definitely meshed well. Of course, I like made friends with the first Hispanic girl. She was like half his half white. Um, and she was like Colombian. So I mean, we meshed like like we're actually still really good friends to this day.
Okay.
And then I had other teammates as well, which I guess were fine. I mean, nobody's actually like really mean or anything like that.
Mhm.
So I mean, yeah, it was fine. My first year, I definitely, because most of my teammates were from that area,
Mhm.
there was a few of us that, were freshmen coming in from other parts of the country. So we kind of did rely on each other to make it through that first year.
Right, right. That's like a support system almost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know in the article that I was reading, you open up about your struggles that you had as far as like with eating disorders
Hmm.
that you stated are they prevalent in the culture of like cross country or track?
They're really prevalent. I think they're more prevalent than a lot of people realize across athletics,
Hmm.
not just in running. I think, of course, you can see it much more. And I think just in the culture, It's now changing a lot because people like me and other women that have more influence in running culture are speaking out against it.
Right.
So it's becoming more aware, or we're becoming more aware together, men and women, on what to do when you're faced with an athlete that does have some kind of eating disorder or is on the spectrum.
And when did those problems start for you?
So, so before I had an eating disorder, there's like a phase called a disordered eating. It's very similar to dieting, to where I was cutting out foods when I was in high school, and that came from a lot of pressure, right? So I have I'm a very type A driven person. So when
Hmm.
I was in high school, I had a lot of AP classes, and then I was also confronted with the my own pressure to be a leader because I am a driven person.
Right,
Um,
right.
and so for me, it started very innocently where I was under a lot of stress, but I wasn't eating a lot because I was stressed. And I
Hmm.
didn't actually realize it. It was very unintentional and very innocent. And people will do that. Like if you're depressed, sometimes people will lose weight because they're just not aware. So it was
Right.
almost that same thing. I wasn't depressed, I was just stressed. And so I got a lot of positive feedback for that. And then, um, you know, I guess like I had assumed, or like my teammates and I assumed that the weight loss was also, attributing to my faster running times as well.
Mm.
Or because I was putting on more mileage, I had also maybe that had caused some of the weight loss to happen, right? So it could have been all kinds of things that were factoring into that weight loss, but nonetheless, there was positive reinforcement.
Right.
And so I became much more aware of it. And then the pressure from me to want to go to college and run, right?
Yeah,
So
all that stuff just kind of mounting up.
yeah. And then I also felt like whenever I did line up against other teams outside of the valley, like when I went to regionals and state, like the women that were doing well on running, they were white. And they were not like me. They had different body types and different body
Hmm.
shapes. And
Hmm.
so I didn't understand that either. And so I wanted to be just like them and fast because I wanted to be recruited and I wanted to be accepted into a collegiate environment. So that also fed into what I was experiencing. So when I got to college, with all of the different stressors that were happening, being in a new environment, new pressures, lining up with women that were not like me, and really kind of focusing on that because there probably were women that were like me, that were Hispanic, but lining up against women who were very fast and that were white was triggering for me. I didn't know how to find my strength in being a minority woman.
Right. So what kind of stuff were you eating, or what kind of stuff were you like like were not trying to eat, like on a typical day?
So I was cutting out a lot of carbs,
Okay.
which is, essential for energy and recovery for runners. So it's really important that people understand that. And I also just kind of want to make a note too, like eating disorders are prevalent in all kinds of people. You don't necessarily have to be cutting out foods or be stick thin or be a runner to experience one. All kinds of people and all kinds of bodies are actually experiencing one.
Exactly. Right.
So if you're dieting, more than likely you're on a spectrum of disordered eating already. It just
Yeah.
hasn't manifested itself into an eating disorder.
Exactly. Yeah. So my patients sometimes say they're like, I ask them, what kind of diet are you on? They're like, I'm not on a diet. I was like, no, everybody's on a diet. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just how we classify certain things. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I think just
Um,
being aware of it. Yeah.
right.
And the mindset
They're
around
like,
your body and food plays a
yeah.
lot into how you view your diet or what you're thinking a diet actually is.
Right. Yeah. They're like, oh, I eat normal. I eat hamburgers. Oh, I was like, well, that's your diet then. You know, that's what you eat.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, right.
yeah.
Um, oh, so were you eating like almost little to nothing? Is that am I getting that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So my form of eating disorder was anorexia and then a little bit of bulimia mixed in there later on. But it really started off, if I were to classify it as an eating disorder, when it actually did happen, it was anorexia.
And when did you feel like that hit? like peak where you realize I can't, this has to change, something like that?
So it really started to change um like after my USA juniors. So I went to USA juniors after my freshman year. I hit a fast 5,000 meter time on the track. So I qualified into USA junior track meet. So I went there. And so I went into a whole nother level of competing and racing. And that
Okay.
was really triggering for me. And so after that, um, I completely basically fell apart like mentally. And then my eating habits were just not great. And so I would say when I returned in the fall, that was like its peak. So in like over the span of the summer, which was about 2 months of being away from college and my coach, um, and after that race or that meet, it just kind of spiraled out of control. And so I returned in the fall, a completely different runner, a completely different person. And I would say like in a very like negative way. Like I was not a nurturing teammate. I wasn't nice. I was very irritable, really cranky. Yeah.
Like
I was just like not a
did you
nice person.
did you see that through the lens of you're just being competitive? Is that how you saw it?
I saw it I like that when it was
Okay.
actually happening and when I was experiencing it. Now looking back, that's what was happening. Um,
Hmm.
um, yeah. And it was also like the way I was coping with that pressure. So it
Right.
wasn't, and that's this is me now in recovery talking about that time, but it was like I was coping through all the pressure I was placing on myself.
I see. I see. And then like did somebody like bring it up, or were you just one day you were like I
Mm-hmm.
can't continue to have this kind of lifestyle,
Mm-hmm. Well,
or
what
or what
happened
happened?
was, yeah, so I think I was already aware that there was a problem. I just hadn't vocalized it. I was trying to handle it on my own.
I see.
Um, and
Just like
then
being proactive, just like how you normally are, right? Because
yeah, I
you're
was
a
trying to
driven
be
person. Yeah.
proactive. Like I was aware of it, but I didn't know how. I didn't know how to ask for help either. Because it is a very shameful feeling when you start to realize that you have this problem and you actually need people. So I had a very shameful feeling about it and it was shameful because I had left school at a very young age. Like I had given up a lot of things. I had given up full rides to come here. I felt like I was representing an entire community of people that wanted something like this. And I felt
Hmm.
like I wasn't actually like living out this privilege that I felt. So it was a lot of guilt and shame around it. Um, and so what had happened was we were at the track one day and my coach was like, I think we should all have a muscle milk. What do you guys think? And we were just like, okay, whatever. And he had brought out the muscle milks and he instructed us to drink it after we finished our workout. And so we're like, okay, great, perfect. And then my teammate, was already in recovery from an eating disorder that she had in high school. So she knew all the symptoms. She knew everything that I was doing was, in alignment with an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And so what happened was when I had left the track, when he had left the track, we were all to drink it, and I tried drinking it, and it really stressed me out. It gave me a lot of anxiety to where I threw it away, and then I ran inside. Like I just couldn't. I was so embarrassed, and I felt really guilty for that. So what happened was my teammate saw, and she went up to the coach's office and told him what had happened. And then later on that day, I was getting pulled into the coach's office and he gave me an ultimatum. I would have to go and call my parents and then go into therapy, or he was going to call my parents and then kick me off the team. So he kind of put that on me, which was good at the time.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of what happened. And then I said, okay. And then I went into therapy the next week. So
Really?
yeah,
Is it
yeah.
actual place, or is it just like somewhere you go every an
So
hour?
there's different kinds of therapy that people pursue, and that could be dependent on like, your provider or whoever your family takes you to be assessed for an eating disorder. Um, I had already known that I had one, and so did my coaches. Didn't really need to be assessed. It was like
Right.
very apparent. And so that's kind of what happened. And um, I guess like the sports medicine team at the university for the athletic department referred us out to a dietitian at Texas Children's. So I went over there, and then she would come and see me once a week. And then after that, she went on a maternity leave, and then I went to another dietitian. And so I would go regularly to see her. And then I also went to therapy. So I went to see a therapist on campus. And so over the next year and a half that she was there in her PhD program, we saw each other regularly. I
Oh,
would say
okay.
like once a week. I would be in there. Yeah.
And did you find that helpful, cathartic? How was that like
For me,
having
it
those type
was
of
very
sessions?
helpful. I think at the time it was really hard to talk about. Um, but I think like after a while, I just kind of like fell into the routine of going to see her, and I realized how much I needed to see a therapist. Um, I was in limbo for a long time as well. Like I knew I needed to get better, but I wasn't ready to make the jump. And so that's kind of where I was stuck. It was just kind of this stuck feeling for about a year. Like I was just kind of like, I know I
And
gotta get through it.
were you still running?
I was still running. Yeah, I had actually
Okay.
taken a red shirt year, like my sophomore track season, my
Okay.
indoor and my outdoor. So I redshirted that whole semester. So right
So
after I had started therapy, I finished the cross country season, and then I was having some like IT bad problems. And my coach was
mm,
like, you know what, you need a red shirt. Like that's it.
okay.
You just need a red shirt. And
So he
so
put you on standby for a bit.
yeah, he did. So begrudgingly, I agreed. And so I was like in the pool most of the time, but you know, I think it was probably the best call because I wasn't actually like injured to where I had a fracture,
Hmm.
but he was just like, you need a mental break, like you need to redshirt and you'll come back
Right.
in the fall, which is probably the smartest thing as well that he did too.
And how old were you this time?
Um, I was 19, 20 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
that's when a lot of kids, I mean, like me too, like you're going through a lot of identity,
mhm,
trying to figure out who you are and stuff. So all that kind of like it's
mhm.
like a melting pot of emotions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially being an athlete like yourself, and being com like having to be competitive,
Hmm.
it must just take things to another level, right? As far
Yeah,
as
yeah, yeah. I definitely had, all the makings to have an eating disorder. And with any kind of mental health issue, I think it's really important to really get down to the root and the cause of it. And you have to confront it. And sometimes you have to go into therapy to figure that out because you could be coping with whatever that root cause is through whatever thing you're doing. So, just like an alcoholic, like if I was an alcoholic and I'm using alcohol to soothe whatever that root cause is, I'm too
right,
scared to actually confront the problem. And so for me, I knew that there was a problem deep inside, um, but I was coping with all the stress that that problem was causing with the eating disorder or the lack of food, restriction of food. Yeah.
I see. So
Hmm.
I imagine a lot of that has to do with you being like a type A personality, like you said,
Hmm.
like you being
Hmm.
very driven,
Hmm.
that it just kind of maybe got out of control, because you were
Yeah.
maybe pushing
Yeah.
it too hard, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the eating disorders, there's like environmental cause or community, and then there's also personal, and then there's also like again like genetics and things like that as well, or social.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because in CrossFit, there's a lot of people too that I see on Instagram that you can tell that they have some kind of like a eating
Addiction.
disorder, right? But it's just like it's not like it doesn't come out, right? Like you said, it's kind of taboo. Like you don't if they don't bring it up, like you don't bring it up, you know?
Hmm.
Uh, and it just kind of stays like that. And I think that there needs to be like a change, like you said, people speaking out against, this type of thing,
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So then you're doing a lot better now, obviously, right?
Yeah. Well,
You,
woo, they got that's over.
yeah. How are your eating habits now?
So I basically eat whatever I want, and that's not because
Yeah.
like marathoning. Like I just view food as
You're not
food.
following the Michael Phelps diet?
Oh no, yeah. And I really don't label food as like good or bad. Like I would say like I really like trust like what I want in that moment and how much of it that I want. I don't really overthink it. And it's kind of wild to a lot of people to be like, what do you mean you don't stress or like you don't worry about how much food you're eating or like if you're eating less or too much or you're full or you're feeling bloated. Like I honestly really don't think about those things. Um, like it just doesn't worry me or doesn't stress me out anymore. I think I've really like realized like my body is just like my body and like that doesn't mean that I'm going to crave the same things over and over again all day or the next day. But like if I actually listen to it and I provide it with what it wants at that moment, that doesn't mean that I've lost my entire day either, or that tomorrow I'm gonna want the same thing. And if I do, then cool. Like then maybe I do want the same thing, right? Maybe it just tastes good and I like it. But I don't like I really don't like shame myself for wanting certain things anymore.
And that was a big issue back then,
It was
was
like
it?
a level of control, like having like the same thing every single day. And like some people do that and like they don't have a problem. For somebody like me, like yeah, like it was a problem. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
So, I mean, I can eat the same thing, but like, do I want to? Like, does it taste good to me?
Yeah.
Do I want third day leftovers? Like, no, I really don't.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
just me, right? Some people are cool with it, awesome, perfect. But for me, like I know, like I like eating different things regularly, and I enjoy food, so
Right.
yeah.
That's good. So do you see see it as fuel almost for your training? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
or
I mean, there's a lot
yeah,
of, I mean, I'm a little bit intentional about like, okay, like maybe in a long run, I'm gonna have like a little bit more anti-inflammatories, like anti-inflammatory foods today because I just really like beat up my body and I need to replenish. So like with things like that, yes, I'm really intentional. But I think in terms of like where people are like, well, do I measure food? Because I think people know like what to eat. Like they know like healthy food is vegetables, protein, and like
right,
complex carbs or like whole grains, right? But I think where people get really confused or they confuse themselves is where these portions because society has made them feel guilty for feeling full or for choosing a piece of cake along with their dinner. And
right.
like, like having that shame from your community or your social network like that's going to cause disordered eating. And I don't think people see it that way either. Because for a while, like that was really like hard for me to move out of like, into recovery because I was afraid that people would judge me for choosing an unhealthy item because I had identified with having a
Right.
salad all the time or something that was
Yeah.
quote healthy. And so was it like, well, people are going to comment or what are they going to say? Am I losing control? Like I was just worried about that all the time. And now I see it as like, well, if people want to judge me, I could just tell them now, like, well, this is what I actually want, and I don't think I'm gonna want it later, but I want it now. Like, have you ever listened to your cravings before, and
Mm.
trusted your cravings? And so, actually, like, I was having a really good discussion about that with another dietitian. Like, what would we say to somebody that was judging our food? And so we were coming up with different things to say to help other clients deal with that. So I think it's really important to stick up for yourself. And if you actually acknowledge that person's response because they're trying to
Mhm.
shame you, they're probably dealing with something themselves where they don't trust their body, but you do. And that's a really
Yeah.
empowering feeling when you actually gain back like that response from that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once,
And
mhm.
no, go ahead.
No, go
Sorry.
ahead. No, I was gonna say, so once I like realized that I actually had that power and control back, Like it just made moving into recovery so much easier. And then thinking about food as like something pleasurable. And like, yeah, I can also use it for performance too. Like there's really no rules to food. It's just what makes me feel good that day. Like I'm not gonna have cheeseburgers every day because that doesn't make me feel good. Like I
Right, right,
don't
exactly.
thrive like that. Yeah.
Like even like you said, listening to your own body, like your body kind of knows, right? Like so, if
Hmm.
you were to have a bunch of burgers every day and then you were trained at the same time, you would feel inflamed, right?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't feel like you have that that push,
Yeah.
as opposed to eating, I guess,
Hmm.
cleaner food, you know?
Yeah. And even then, like let's say I did want a hamburger like twice throughout the week, right? Because that's what I wanted. Like, not a big deal. So I think it's really important for people to really like understand that and like remove the guilt and the shame and the morals that we place on these foods too. Because unknowingly, we could be doing that to a larger bodied person. And then they feel like this person expects me to get a dessert because I am big and I am in a larger body. And so maybe I should get it. And then they don't even want it.
Like
So
they
we
play
can
up to
be
that role,
causing
yeah.
a reverse effect on that person where they're thinking
Hmm.
like everybody thinks I should be eating this much anyway, so F it.
Right,
Because I
right.
have had people that feel that way.
Well, what I was gonna say right now was that, as far as like you said, society kind of has these views on what women
Mm-hmm.
should eat, right? Like the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing is
Hmm.
that when you go on a date with a girl, right?
Oh yeah.
And you notice that they're eating a lot, like that should be like some kind of red flag, you know?
Yeah.
And it's I
Yeah.
never understood that, but I guess people do think like that. So therefore, the woman won't eat, like you
Um,
said, like she'll stick to her salad or whatever because she'll feel like some kind of guilt, like you said, as
yeah,
far as
yeah, it's really
you know what I'm
interesting.
saying?
Like I've seen a lot of like his and her plates like on Instagram, and I just kind of roll my eyes because I'm like my boyfriend and I eat like the same amount. Like or like, yeah, maybe
Exactly.
he
Yeah.
eats more than me, but like it's like we kind of eat the same. Like
Right,
it
right.
doesn't
I think
matter because
yeah, I
he's
think
also
little
a
by
cook, so his appetite's really large.
yeah.
And so is mine. Like I will say, like I have a large appetite, and I think if women said that, they feel embarrassed about it too. Like even just saying words like that, I have a large appetite. But like for me, like I have a large appetite, and like there's times where I probably do eat more than him.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because I mean you're training so hard, and you're burning everything,
Hmm.
so it makes sense that your body just needs more energy, right?
Hmm.
Um, so let's get as far as the race coming up this weekend. So what's the outlook? You said earlier about about the whole qualifying for the Olympics. So what's the scoop on that?
So I qualified for the Olympic trial. So this is the trials. So a lot of women will qualify. Well, this is actually the largest group of women that has qualified, I think, ever since the inception of the Olympic marathon trials for the women. And so the first race was in 1984. Um, and so going I think this is the largest pool of women. I think there's around like 511 competitors, something like that, maybe 487 that are actually racing. So
Okay.
in that itself, like that's a small number compared to the amount of women marathoners in the country. So from there, everybody runs the race, and then the top three move on to the Olympics in Tokyo for the summer.
Or just the top three.
Just the top three,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
And so as far as your times and stuff like that, how confident are you that you'll be able to get to those top three spots?
I'm confident I will have a strong race, but confident to get a top three spot, not. I don't think that's likely. So just to put it in perspective, like
Okay.
I'm not a professional athlete. I would consider myself as like an amateur sub-elite marathoner. And
Hmm.
that's just by times. This is not like me being modest. This is like I'm probably in that category.
Okay.
Um, so
What was your time in the Houston
it
Marathon?
was 2:43.
2:43. And that you like you said like the professionals, what are they running?
So they're running like 2:20,
Oh,
2:25.
2:20s. Okay.
Yeah. So those are professionals, women who are sponsored and endorsed by, large companies like Nike, Brooks Running, um, places like that. So, or like companies like that. Yeah, Adidas. So New Balance, Hoka. So you definitely, I mean, that's a professional runner. And I have a lot of respect for those women as well. So just kind of making that known, like definitely not putting myself in that category because they do deserve the amount of respect that they've earned. Yeah, because it's been years of work and going through several Olympic cycles, that takes a lot of work in itself.
I
Yeah.
see, I see. And so did you have ever aspirations of maybe like going pros and and
Um,
dedicating yourself that much to marathoning?
I never really did. I still really don't, to be honest. I really enjoy my job. I really enjoy what I do. Um, yeah, I really don't. I think also for me, I don't know if I would be satisfied with having, being a professional athlete. Because you kind of still go through a whole identity shift. And not to say that like my identity is set and solid, because I still have like, hopefully another 60 years to live. Um,
Yeah.
50 to 60, whatever, God says is time. But I think like he plays a lot of emphasis as like a professional athlete doing this one thing. And I think personally, I don't know if I would be satisfied just doing running for a living. Like, yes,
Right.
it's a huge passion, but I would probably still be doing other things at the same time. Yeah.
Like you think like you have to be in a different kind of headspace, like maybe like you were when you were in college, like just like super into it and like that's basically all you do to the
Hmm.
point where maybe like other aspects of your life you kind of like have to put on the back burner and you don't see
Hmm.
yourself doing that anymore. Is that
I
maybe a
mean,
thing?
you definitely do sacrifices. I don't think a lot of people realize like how much sacrifice goes into training and like I don't really go out and like it doesn't mean that I don't like miss it or anything like that. It's just like I choose to be
Right.
in bed by like 9. Like I like being home on a Friday, Saturday night because I know that when I wake up and I get my run done, like I have an awesome day. Like there's a lot of people my age or that go stay up till midnight and like that's just not my thing. Or I've had to say no to a lot of things as well. Even like going to see family because I'm like, I have a workout at the track on Friday morning. Like
Right.
I'd rather be here and getting it done than going home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that. So you really sacrifice a lot and you let go a lot of things to get the most out of yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I
But the
mean,
point
go ahead.
no, sorry, go ahead. No, I was like, but the point is that I think what you're trying to say is that you enjoy doing this. Like it's
Yeah,
part of who you
I
are.
enjoy it. Yeah. Do would I want to sacrifice any more of like my career, like put it on hold either, or like other parts of my life? I don't think I would want to go to that extent for running. I like keeping it as like a serious hobby. Um, but I wouldn't say like, oh, if, a company came knocking at my door and was like, hey, we're going to provide you with this, then cool. But I would also have to be prepared to realize like when I get injured and my contract is let go, like what am I going to do? Right.
Mm. Right, right.
But also thinking about those things as well, because, any month of training as a professional athlete, like your job is on the line as well.
Exactly. Your body is essentially your
Yeah,
livelihood.
that's your money maker. So
Yeah.
I don't think that I like that kind of stability or instability.
Instability, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, uncertainty sometimes, right? And
Hmm.
stress essentially, right? Because a lot of these athletes, I mean, like you
Hmm.
said, like it's make or break it, right? Because they
Yeah,
need to win to get the sponsorships, to get more money, to make a living.
exactly.
And that kind of, like you said, it might put you back in a headspace where like you're back to maybe the darker version of yourself, where it's just like go, 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 win at all costs. And
Uh, I mean, I could see how it seems triggering. Um, I don't know. I don't really like, I'm not afraid of that part. I think like I've been in recovery for enough years now
Okay.
where I feel really confident and like I have a mission about it now. And so I think that also helps keep me in recovery as well. Like, I don't think, like, I've never really felt like I'm going to relapse or like anything like that, to be honest. Like
I
I
see.
was like one day I was like, oh my God, I think I've relapsed. I've never actually felt like that, luckily.
Okay. Okay. So then, when do you head out to Atlanta?
So I
When?
leave Thursday. So I guess like the 27th. Yeah. So I leave in 2 days.
Okay, so you have a like your coach. You said you have some loved ones going with you, stuff like that.
Yeah, so my family's going. Yeah, that's gonna be super fun. I
Uh-huh.
told them that I wanted like a bunch of watto at the at the race. I
That's
was like, I
good.
want
Yeah.
noisemakers, I want everything. I want everybody to know that we're here.
Yeah, that's good.
And so my family just laughs. It's like, okay, we will deliver. Uh, so that, and then I think like, yeah, my coaches will be there. I have a few friends going. Yeah. So it's gonna be a good time. Mhm.
Awesome. And so just I was wondering this, like, what do you think about once you're talking about the article that it was down to you and like a few other girls when you were running in the Houston Marathon, like you said you kind of get in this mode of like pushing yourself.
Yeah.
So what kind of headspace are you in when you're actually running the 20 what is it, 25 miles? And what are you thinking about throughout the whole time when you're running?
That's a really good question. I think about the last 10K a lot. So the last 6 miles of a race. Like, what is that going to feel like? Or like, if I feel this way, what am I going to do? And, how am I going to get past that? And so in preparation for Houston, I really focused on like, my first few marathons where I just enjoyed it so much and like really channeling like that experience that for the first time. And I was like,
Okay.
like on when I was just thinking about Chevron, like the last 10K, there is no doubt that you are going to experience something new. Even though this is your seventh marathon, you're going to experience a whole new level of yourself. Like that's exciting. And so I think about that a lot. Like, what is at the end, or what am I experiencing now that is going to meet me when I finish? Because any marathon and any kind of training cycle, you are learning more about yourself. It is a spiritual journey.
Right.
And so every time I line up when I've gone through a training cycle, it's like, what have I learned about myself? And what is going to wait for me at the end? Because when that last 10K comes around, it's going to hurt. Like there's no
Exactly.
doubt for everybody. But like why like you have to really attach it to the entire experience. Like what are you experiencing, or what is your goal of like what are you aiming to experience? And I think that's really important. And so for me, I was like, qualifying is going to be a whole nother experience for me. You
Hmm.
have to take in the moment. So I think for most of the time, like the last 10K, like I really enjoy it so much. Um, and I just really latch onto that. Like it's a celebration. Like, and I knew that all of my friends were going to be on the course at the last 10K because, that's where everybody knows that you need help from anybody. So I saw like all of my training partners, and all like my community out there. So that was really nice. And I think like it's really the most peaceful part of the race for me. You just shut your mind off and you just let it flow out of you.
Right. It's just that one goal is just
Yeah, and it's not even like um you just have to completely trust your body. You have
exactly.
to trust like everything that you've done, all the mental preparation. You have to trust all the physical preparation at that point because if you have any doubt, when you're in that most vulnerable state, you have to be thinking about all the happy things.
Exactly, and that could be like a metaphor for anybody how they live their lives, right? Like
Exactly.
when something bad is going down, you have to be in you have to be able to trust yourself,
Yeah.
and like you said, it's gonna hurt, and just like
Yeah.
in life, there's gonna be stuff that's gonna hurt you,
Hmm.
but it's about how you think about it, right?
Yeah. So
About
it's a
how
lot
you
of
choose to
reframing.
frame it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A
exactly.
lot of reframing. Like you just kind of go through a lot of those scenarios like on your runs and things like that. At least that's what I do. And then I just really like, like I really enjoyed my first marathon. Like, when was the most fun that I had during that thing? And I was like, it was because I was experiencing a marathon for the first time. And how did that feel? So, like, really latching on to those kinds of experiences throughout my running career, it really helps a lot. Like, constantly staying present, because when you
Right.
stay present, you have a much better awareness of like your feeling and the sensations of running and sensations of excitement. And so when you finally get to the race where you need to think about that, it's just so much easier because you've been present in everything else.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny that you were mentioning that because I had read a quote about this coach, and he was saying about how he teaches his athletes how to think about training, and he says it's like you don't have to train, you get to train.
Hmm.
So essentially, like me in the hospital, like I see a lot of people my age,
Hmm.
30 some year olds, and they don't have the opportunities of being fully healthy like we are.
Hmm.
And so when I go for a run, I'm just like I'm happy that I'm able to run, and that's kind of how I reframe uh, my way of like training. It's
Yeah.
like you get to move, you
Yeah.
get to do these things. So not everybody does, and I think being appreciative of your body and the opportunity you get to do those things, I think
Yeah.
is very important, right?
Hmm.
And I think, I mean, for your race coming up, I think it's perfect because like you said, you're doing this just because you enjoy it and you're not chasing, some level of achievement or anything like that. You're mostly doing this because you want to. So best of luck. I mean,
Hmm.
how can you not root for a person who enjoys and doing what they love and so yeah, so we support you here from the valley, and we hope you have a very good race. So all the best of luck to you.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So just sort of go ahead and your Instagram and your whatever you want to plug in um, for
Mhm.
for your profiles. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What is it?
So I guess my shameless plug is you can find me on Instagram at Starla_shines. Um, and then I also do nutrition counseling services for runners and all kinds of athletes.
And they don't have
And
to be in Houston, right? That's the thing.
no, you don't have to be in Houston. I still see people either through Zoom, Skype, and then through telephone if they prefer it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And you provide measurements, all that stuff, right? All the percentages and
Um, yeah, so I
or
help people put together a nutrition plan and, follow them and help them make those sustainable habits stick that they're looking for. Yeah. So if you're tired of dieting, you're tired of going on these crazy diets and you want something sustainable to help your performance, come find me.
awesome. Awesome. Okay, Starla. So thanks for letting me interview you. And like I said, best of luck on your race. And we wish you all the best.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. So that's it, guys, for the Verified Podcast. Check us out on Instagram, Verified Podcast RGV. And this was Starla Garcia running in Atlanta this weekend. So wish her best of luck, and we'll catch you guys next time. Okay, Starla. Thanks. I'll send you a message right now. Okay.
Okay, awesome.